The film opens on a remote, windswept island somewhere in the Pacific, where jagged rocks rise from turbulent waters and seabirds circle overhead in the gray dawn light. Harvey Elder directs his small team with manic energy that borders on desperation. His colleagues move about their tasks with visible skepticism. They exchange glances when he isn't looking, their body language suggesting this isn't the first time they've questioned his theories. Harvey notices their doubt, but pushes forward anyway, consulting geological surveys and ancient texts he's compiled over decades of research. He speaks rapidly about underground tunnel systems, about a network of caverns that connects continents like a subway system beneath the Earth's crust. His team humors him because they're being paid, but their expressions make clear they believe they're participating in an expensive wild goose chase orchestrated by a man whose obsession has cost him academic credibility. The dig site reveals unusual geological formations, rock strata that shouldn't exist at this depth, crystalline structures that suggest intense heat and pressure from below rather than above. Harvey's excitement grows with each anomaly discovered. He runs his hands over the stones with something approaching reverence, muttering calculations and cross-referencing his notes with the physical evidence before him. Then, without warning, the ground trembles. The tremor is subtle at first, barely noticeable, but it intensifies rapidly. Harvey's team backs away from the excavation pit, shouting warnings, but Harvey moves closer, his scientific curiosity overriding self-preservation instinct. The earth beneath his feet fractures like thin ice, and suddenly he's falling, his scream echoing as he plummets into darkness. The fall seems endless. Harvey tumbles through absolute blackness, his body striking stone outcroppings and narrow passages that slow but don't stop his descent. When he finally crashes onto solid ground, the impact knocks the wind from his lungs. He lies there in complete darkness, hearing only his own ragged breathing and the distant sound of water dripping somewhere in the vast space around him. Harvey fumbles for his equipment pack, his hands shaking as he retrieves night vision goggles. He straps them on, adjusting the settings, and the world transforms into shades of green. What he sees defies comprehension. A cavern so massive that his enhanced vision can barely perceive its boundaries. Then something massive shifts in the shadows behind him. He spins around, and through the night vision goggles, he sees it, giganto. The narrative jumps forward, and we find ourselves in a wood-paneled congressional hearing room in Washington, D.C. The Madam Chairman opens the proceedings, her voice formal and measured. She asks each of them to identify themselves for the record. Reed Richards responds with his name and academic credentials, a reflexive assertion of his scientific identity. When the chairman assumes Sue and Johnny Storm are married, Sue corrects her with a slight edge to her voice, clarifying they're siblings, not spouses. The chairman acknowledges Ben Grimm last, her pause before doing so suggesting even she finds his appearance unsettling. She explains that this is meant to be an informal inquiry into the events of the past 2 weeks, a fact-finding endeavor to understand what happened and what these 4 individuals represent. But Reed challenges the premise. If this is informal, why the secrecy? Why are the heavily armed guards treating them like potential threats? Senator Boynton leans forward. He states bluntly what everyone in the room already knows. They need to determine whether these 4 individuals pose a threat to national security. The cosmic radiation that altered them has created something unprecedented, something that frightens the government because it exists outside their control. Boynton asks the question that drives the entire hearing. What happened up there, Dr. Richards? The narrative transitions into an extended flashback, and we see the launch day arrive with an appropriate ceremony. Dignitaries attend, cameras capture every moment, and speeches are made about human achievement and the endless frontier of space exploration. The launch sequence unfolds with documentary precision. The ship rises on pillars of flame, accelerating through Earth's atmosphere, leaving behind everything familiar. For the first several orbits, everything proceeds according to plan. Then the readings change. The cosmic storm, an unpredictable confluence of radiation from sources they can't identify, envelopes the ship faster than they can react. The crew experiences the bombardment as a physical sensation: heat, pressure, a feeling of their bodies coming apart at the molecular level. The ship's systems fail catastrophically. They tumble out of orbit, the hull breached in multiple locations, life support failing. The descent becomes a barely controlled fall, the heat of re-entry adding to the chaos already consuming them. Through skill, luck, and Reed's last-second calculations, they crash land in a remote area where SHIELD teams immediately secure the site. The 4 crew members are transported while unconscious to a SHIELD facility known simply as the Dome, located in the Oklahoma plains far from any population center. The crew awakens in separate quarantine cells, each monitored by arrays of instruments measuring everything from heart rate to cellular mutation rates. They're disoriented, in pain, their memories of the crash fragmented and unclear. SHIELD medical personnel move carefully around them, maintaining strict decontamination protocols, treating them as much like specimens as patients. Ben Grimm regains consciousness slowly, his body feeling wrong in ways he can't immediately identify. He tries to sit up and discovers his body won't respond the way it should. His hands look strange, the color wrong, the texture impossible. He stumbles out of the medical bed, and in the observation mirror sees something that can't be him, a creature made of orange rock where Ben Grimm should be. His scream of horror and confusion brings SHIELD security running. Ben, in his panic and rage, doesn't recognize them as people trying to help. He sees threats, sees people who might have done this to him, and he lashes out. His rocky fist punches through reinforced walls like they're made of paper. His strength, always considerable, has become monstrous. Security personnel scatter, alarms sound, and Ben stumbles through the facility in confused horror, trying to escape from himself as much as from confinement. Reed Richards, alerted by the commotion, rushes from his own quarantine cell to help his friend. He's experienced his own physical changes, intermittent moments where his body seems to lose structural integrity, where his arms extend beyond what should be physically possible. But his analytical mind is already categorizing these changes, trying to understand them rather than fear them. When he sees Ben, his first thought is scientific curiosity, his second is concern for his friend. But Ben, looking at Reed's still human face, feels only betrayal. This was Reed's mission, Reed's dream, Reed's insistence that they needed to study cosmic radiation in space. And now look at what it's cost. Ben's massive hand closes around Reed's throat, lifting him off the ground. In that moment, Ben wants Reed to understand the pain, to share in the horror of transformation. Reed's body responds to the threat instinctively. His neck stretches, extending like rubber, allowing him to breathe even in Ben's grip. His arms elongate, wrapping around Ben's wrist, trying to pry loose the fingers. The sight of Reed's body contorting in impossible ways only enrages Ben further. Sue Storm, drawn by the sounds of confrontation, arrives to find the 2 men she cares about most locked in a violent struggle. Her own transformation has been manifesting unpredictably, moments of invisibility triggered by stress or strong emotion. In her desperation to stop them before one seriously harms the other, she feels something shift inside her. An invisible force erupts from her body, a barrier of pure energy that separates Ben and Reed with irresistible force. The 3 of them freeze, staring at what Sue has just done. The force field shimmers faintly in the air, distorting light passing through it. Sue looks at her hands in wonder and fear, understanding that she's changed as fundamentally as Ben has, though her transformation is less visible. The field dissipates, and Sue moves between Ben and Reed, positioning herself as both mediator and protector. Johnny Storm arrives last, alerted by SHIELD personnel that his sister is involved in the situation. He rushes toward the confrontation, his emotions running high, his anger at seeing his sister potentially in danger, igniting something inside him. Flames erupt across his body without warning, consuming him in fire that should incinerate flesh, but instead seems to sustain him. He burns without being consumed, his body temperature soaring to levels that would kill any normal human. Johnny screams, not from pain, but from shock, windmilling his arms and inadvertently setting fire to everything around him. Security personnel deploy fire suppression systems, dousing Johnny with chemical foam that extinguishes the flames. He stands there, unharmed, his clothes burn away but his skin unmarked. The 4 crew members look at each other, each transformed in different ways by the same cosmic radiation, and the full horror of their situation settles over them. The flashback concludes, returning us to the congressional hearing where Senator Boynton and the committee have listened to this account with varying degrees of skepticism and concern, especially dealing with something familiar with mutants and even the Gamma Bomb incident. Finally, the Madam Chairman calls the hearing back to order. She acknowledges the extraordinary nature of what has happened to these 4 individuals. She notes for the record that SHIELD's analysis has concluded they pose no immediate threat to public safety, that their transformations appear stable, and that their containment is no longer warranted. However, she emphasizes that this conclusion is provisional. They will be monitored. Any misuse of their abilities will result in immediate government intervention. The message is clear. They're being released, but on a very short leash. The hearing concludes with a final warning from Senator Boynton. He leans forward, his expression grave, and tells them directly that the American people are watching. Any action that threatens public safety, any suggestion that their powers make them above the law, will be met with the full force of government authority. He leaves unsaid, but clearly implied. There are contingency plans in place should they become a threat. Leaving the hearing room, Reed gathers the other 3 before they separate, before the weight of everything that's happened drives them apart permanently. He makes his pitch with the passionate intensity of someone who's been planning this speech for months. They need to stay together. Their powers, individually remarkable, become something greater when combined. They have an opportunity to help humanity in ways no one else can. He's already been working on this, planning for this moment. And he secured a location in Manhattan, the Baxter Building, a towering structure in the heart of the city that will serve as both headquarters and home. Reed also announces their placeholder name, the 4. Johnny immediately objects, his face screwing up in distaste. The name sounds incomplete, temporary, lacking any sense of identity or purpose. Reed assures him it's just for now, until they establish themselves and earn something better. The days following their move into the Baxter Building establish new rhythms as each member attempts to integrate their former lives with their transformed present. We follow Sue through a typical day that reveals how much and how little has changed. She attends a meeting with an environmental advocacy group planning a protest against corporate pollution. The other activists welcome her, some aware of who she is, others knowing her only through her previous work. Sue presents research she's compiled on contamination levels, her scientific background lending credibility to their cause. But she catches people staring, sees them whispering when they think she's not looking, and knows they're speculating about her abilities, about whether she could turn invisible right now without anyone knowing. After the meeting, Sue walks through Highline Park with her friend Zoe, a relationship that predates the accident and represents one of the few anchors to her former life. They get coffee from a vendor, find a bench with a view of the city, and for a few minutes Sue can pretend things are normal. They discuss mundane topics, friends getting married, apartment hunting, the rising cost of everything in Manhattan. Then Zoe's tone shifts, becoming more carefully casual, and she asks about Reed. How are things going between them? Sue's answer comes slowly, choosing words carefully. Their relationship has changed, she admits. The accident changed more than just their bodies. It altered the dynamics between them in ways she's still trying to understand. Reed has become consumed by his work, spending endless hours in the laboratory, always one more experiment away from giving her his full attention. Zoe, who has listened to Sue complain about unavailable partners before, suggests gently that maybe Sue should consider other options. There are plenty of people who would love to date her, people who might actually be present emotionally rather than perpetually distracted by science. Sue laughs at the suggestion, but it's a hollow sound. She knows Zoe means well, but the advice misses something fundamental. She and Reed share an experience no one else can understand. They were transformed together. They died and were reborn together in that cosmic storm. How can she explain that to someone who hasn't experienced it? Sue tells Zoe she needs to work things out with Reed, that walking away isn't an option she's ready to consider. In the laboratory, Reed and HERBIE have developed a working relationship that goes beyond mere user and tool. They theorize together about the cosmic radiation's effects, exploring implications that range from revolutionary to disturbing. The radiation has altered the team at a quantum level, introducing mutations that shouldn't be biologically stable, but somehow are. Reed maps these changes obsessively, driven partly by scientific curiosity and partly by guilt over what happened to Ben. The cure for Ben's condition consumes a significant portion of Reed's research time. He's tried multiple approaches: radiation bombardment, designed to reverse the original exposure; genetic therapy, attempting to restore Ben's original DNA; even experimental procedures that border on science fiction. Nothing has worked. Each failure deepens Reed's guilt and intensifies his determination to find a solution. During one of these research sessions, HERBIE's sensors detect something unusual: breathing in a supposedly empty section of the laboratory. Reed looks up from his work, scanning the area visually but seeing nothing. HERBIE analyzes the breathing pattern, the slight disturbances in airflow, and identifies the intruder: Sue Storm, using her invisibility. Before Reed can acknowledge her presence, Sue runs from the room, her footsteps fading down the corridor. Reed stares after her, beginning to process what her invisible presence means. She came to see him, possibly to talk, definitely to connect, and found him so absorbed in his work that he didn't notice her until an artificial intelligence pointed out her presence. The realization of his failure hits him, but rather than immediately pursuing her, Reed turns back to his experiments. Sue Storm finds an empty training area in the Baxter building, a space designed to withstand significant force and energy discharge. The training session becomes cathartic, a physical manifestation of everything she's feeling. Each force field represents a boundary she's establishing, a declaration that she won't simply wait for Reed to notice her, and won't fade into the background of his scientific obsessions. She's powerful in ways she's only beginning to understand, and that power is hers alone, independent of Reed or anyone else. Willie Lumpkin, the Baxter building's dedicated mailman, arrives for his daily delivery. Willie chats with the team in the building's public reception area, sharing neighborhood gossip and making them feel like part of the community rather than isolated oddities. He hands Johnny a package that's been forwarded from his old address. Motorcycle glove Johnny ordered before the accident, specialized equipment for the stunt riding he used to enjoy. Johnny opens the package with visible excitement. The gloves represent a connection to who he was before, to hobbies and interests that had nothing to do with cosmic radiation or superhuman abilities. Sue watches her brother with disapproving concern. She wants Johnny to take their situation seriously, to grow up and recognize the responsibilities that come with their powers. Reed agrees with Sue's assessment, both of them suggesting Johnny should focus on training and preparation rather than recreational pursuits. Johnny bristles at their criticism. He spent months confined, tested, treated like a specimen rather than a person. Now that he's finally free, they want him to remain restricted, to live according to their sense of responsibility rather than his own desires. He tells them he's going out, and there's nothing they can do to stop him. Johnny heads to an illegal motorcycle race being organized in an industrial area of New York. He joins the race with his new gloves, feeling the familiar rush of speed and competition. For a few minutes, he's just Johnny Storm again, a young man on a motorcycle pushing limits for the pure joy of it. Then his excitement triggers his powers, flames erupting without warning. The fire spreads down his body, consuming his clothes, melting his motorcycle beneath him. The crowd screams and scatters, but Johnny isn't falling. He's flying. The flames propel him upward, letting him soar through the air in a way that feels more natural than anything he's experienced since the accident. The exhilaration is unlike anything Johnny has ever felt. He loops and soars through the Manhattan sky, leaving trails of flame, until his inexperience catches up with him. He misjudges a turn, loses control, and crashes spectacularly into a water tower on a building rooftop. Ben Grimm needs groceries, a mundane task that once required no thought but has become an ordeal, and ventures on a Madison Avenue in mid-afternoon. The reactions begin immediately. A mother with a stroller sees him and gasps, pulling her child away as though Ben might devour them. Teenagers laugh and point, pulling out phones to record the freak walking down the street. They throw things at Ben, soda cans, food, whatever's at hand. They're not really trying to hurt him. They're testing him, asserting dominance, making clear that he's not welcome in their space. Ben tells them to stop, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. They don't stop. They laugh and throw more, emboldened by his restraint. Something inside Ben breaks. He's tried to be patient, tried to exist peacefully in a world that no longer has a place for him. But he has limits, and they've been reached. He roars, a sound of pure rage and pain, and takes a step toward his tormentors. They scatter like leaves before a storm, suddenly remembering that the monster they were tormenting could crush them without effort. Ben stands alone on the sidewalk, watching them flee, and catches his reflection in the store window. The creature staring back is barely recognizable as human. Ben turns away from his reflection and walks back toward the Baxter building, each step heavy with the weight of his new reality. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, in caverns that extend for miles in every direction, Harvey Elder has built something extraordinary. Subterranea, as he calls it, is an underground civilization occupying spaces that existed long before humanity. The Moloids, strange humanoid creatures adapted to darkness and underground existence, have accepted Harvey as their leader, perhaps recognizing something in him that resonates with their own nature. The machine Harvey builds defies easy description. It's massive, filling a cavern the size of an aircraft hangar. Constructed from a combination of ancient technology he's discovered in these tunnels and modern components he's had the Moloids steal from the surface. The machine's purpose is clear to Harvey, but would seem insane to anyone else. He intends to expand Subterranea by claiming territory from the surface world. The Moloids listen with devotion, accepting Harvey's vision because he's shown them possibilities beyond mere survival. But the machine needs one final component, something Harvey hasn't been able to synthesize or discover in the underground. He needs to acquire it from the surface, which means reconnaissance. Harvey deploys a small drone, a device he's constructed using both salvage technology and his own considerable engineering skills. The drone navigates through tunnel systems, rising toward the surface, eventually emerging in New York City. The drone flies through Manhattan streets, capturing scenes of life continuing as it always has. Harvey watches with mixed emotions. Nostalgia for what he left, contempt for a society that rejected him, curiosity about how the surface world has changed in his absence. Then the drone's camera captures something remarkable. Ben Grimm, being feared by people, and now entering the Baxter building. The wheels of a plan begin turning in Harvey's mind. Starting tomorrow, the plan will be set in motion. Sue finds Reed in his laboratory hours later. She's made a decision. They need to talk about what's happening between them, about the growing distance that's replacing the intimacy they once shared. No more avoiding the conversation. No more letting it wait until Reed finishes his current project. Reed's first response is defensive. He's not avoiding her. He's working. There's so much to understand about their transformations, so many possibilities to explore, and most importantly, Ben's cure to discover. How can Sue ask him to abandon that work when Ben's suffering continues? Every hour Reed spends away from the laboratory is another hour Ben remains trapped in that rocky body. Sue counters that Reed is using Ben's condition as an excuse to avoid emotional engagement. Yes, finding a cure is important, but Reed's obsession has become unhealthy, a way to hide from the complicated feelings their situation evokes. When was the last time Reed and Sue had a real conversation? Not about experiments or powers, but about them, about what they mean to each other now that everything has changed. Reed struggles to answer. He's asking for understanding, for patience, for Sue to accept that this is how he processes trauma. Through work, through problem solving, through the familiar comfort of scientific method. The argument escalates, both of them saying things they'll later regret. Sue accuses Reed of caring more about being right than about being present. Reed accuses Sue of not understanding the magnitude of what they're dealing with, of expecting emotional availability when they're trying to comprehend and control powers that could potentially threaten lives. The fight ends without resolution, with Sue leaving the laboratory and Reed turning back to his experiments, both of them feeling misunderstood and frustrated. In the kitchen, Ben Grimm attempts to prepare a meal. HERBIE floats nearby, silently observing. The robot's sensors detect Ben's struggles and frustration. Without comment or fanfare, HERBIE begins making adjustments. The robot retrieves larger, more durable knives from storage, tools designed for industrial kitchens that can withstand Ben's strength. HERBIE repositions bowls, places them where Ben can reach them easily, and stabilizes ingredients so they won't roll away when Ben's rocky fingers touch them. Ben notices these accommodations, and they cut deeper than any insult from the Madison Avenue crowd. HERBIE is helping because Ben can no longer perform basic tasks, because he needs special equipment just to do something as simple as prepare food. The robot's assistance, well-intentioned and practical, emphasizes everything Ben has lost. That evening, the 4 team members gather for dinner in the Baxter Building's dining area. Johnny, still riding the high from his earlier flight, makes an offhand comment about Ben needing to lighten up. The remark is thoughtless rather than malicious, the kind of casual insensitivity that comes from youth and lack of perspective. But to Ben, already raw from the day's events, it feels like another reminder that Johnny can't understand what Ben is experiencing. Ben tells Johnny to stay out of it, his voice carrying an edge of warning. Johnny, never good at reading social cues when he's excited, pushes back. He makes another joke, something about Ben needing to rock out and have some fun. It's exactly the wrong thing to say. Ben explodes from his seat, the chair clattering backward. He tells Johnny to shut up, to stop treating their situation like a game, to show some respect for what Ben has lost. Johnny, defensive now, argues that Ben isn't the only one who's changed, that they're all dealing with transformations and uncertainty. The argument escalates to physical confrontation. Ben grabs Johnny, his rocky hands closing around Johnny's shoulders. Johnny's powers activate in response to the threat, flames erupting across his body. Reed tries to intervene, stretching his arms to separate them, but Ben's strength and Johnny's heat make it difficult to maintain contact. Sue creates a force field between them, a barrier that pushes them apart with irresistible force. The fight ends, but the damage is done. In the silence that follows, Ben's real grievance emerges. He's angry at Reed, not Johnny. Angry that Reed is spending time researching their powers' effects, documenting their abilities, pursuing scientific understanding when he should be focused entirely on curing Ben's condition. Every day spent on other research is a day Ben remains trapped in this form. Reed tries to explain that understanding their powers is part of finding a cure, that he can't reverse Ben's condition without comprehending the mechanism of transformation. But Ben doesn't want scientific explanations. He wants Reed to prioritize their friendship over curiosity, to remember that Ben agreed to this mission because he trusted Reed completely. Ben describes what happened on the streets. The stares, the fear, the objects thrown at him, the word monster that follows him everywhere. Ben storms out. Sue immediately moves to follow him, concerned for Ben's safety and emotional state overriding her anger at Reed. She turns invisible, planning to tail Ben without his knowledge, to ensure nothing terrible happens while he's in this emotional state. But Ben, more perceptive than Sue gave him credit for, detects her presence almost immediately. He stops walking and tells the empty air that he knows she's there, that he wants to be alone, that he doesn't need or want her protection. Sue reluctantly complies and lets Ben go. Reed watches this exchange from the Baxter Building's window, seeing Sue reappear on the street below, seeing Ben's massive form disappearing into the Manhattan night. Guilt crashes over Reed like a physical weight. Ben Grimm walks through Yancey Street on a rainy night, the neighborhood where he grew up, where he learned about loyalty and toughness and the value of community. He passes the corner where he got into his first fight, defending a smaller kid from bullies. He sees the building where his family lived in a cramped apartment that somehow always felt warm and full despite limited space. He walks past the lot where he and his friends played baseball, where he discovered he was stronger and tougher than other kids, where his physical prowess first defined him. The memories are painful now, not because they're sad, but because they emphasize the distance between who he was and what he's become. Ben's wandering takes him eventually to the Four Seasons restaurant, a nice establishment he would never have entered in his youth, but where he finds himself now, drawn by the lights and the illusion of normalcy. Ben enters the restaurant uncertain of what he's doing here, why he came inside rather than continuing his aimless walk. The waiter recoils slightly at Ben's appearance, professional courtesy barely masking discomfort. Ben is about to leave when Alicia Masters calls out, asking if someone just came in. Ben, surprised, confirms that he did. Alicia invites him to join her, explaining that she had a reservation for two, but her friend canceled, and she hates dining alone. There's no recognition in her voice of who or what Ben is, no reaction to his appearance, because appearance means nothing to her. For the first time since his transformation, Ben encounters someone whose first response isn't fear or disgust. Ben sits down across from Alicia, still uncertain but intrigued. They talk through dinner, and Ben finds himself opening up in ways he hasn't since the accident. Alicia shares her story, how she lost her sight as a child, the initial despair and anger, the gradual acceptance and adaptation. She talks about her passion for sculpture, how blindness taught her to perceive the world through different senses, how touch can reveal things that sight often misses. Alicia speaks about beauty and art in ways that challenge Ben's self-perception. She suggests that appearance is just one way of experiencing a person, often the least revealing way. She doesn't pretend that Ben hasn't changed or that his transformation doesn't present challenges, but she refuses to treat him as monstrous or less than human. She then extends her hand across the table, asking if she can touch his face, her way of seeing people. Ben hesitates, but Alicia's request comes with no judgment, no fear, just curiosity and a different way of perceiving. Ben allows it, and Alicia's fingers explore his rocky features with gentle thoroughness. She traces the contours of his face, feeling the texture of his skin, mapping his features through touch. Her expression shows concentration and interest rather than revulsion. When she's done, she smiles and tells Ben he has an interesting face, strong and unique. The next morning, the ground beneath Manhattan trembles, subtle at first. The pavement on 2nd Avenue explodes upward in a shower of concrete and earth. A massive clawed hand emerges from the chasm, gripping the street's edge. Then another, Giganto, pulls itself from the underground darkness into daylight. Its enormous body rising story after story until it towers over the surrounding buildings. The creature releases a roar that reverberates through the city, primal and deafening. At the Baxter Building, HERBIE's alarms shriek urgently. The artificial intelligence's normally calm voice carries unprecedented urgency. A massive creature has emerged from an earthquake site on 2nd Avenue and is moving directly toward their location. The news networks are already covering it. Helicopter footage showing Giganto rampaging through Manhattan streets, crushing cars beneath its feet, causing structural damage to buildings simply by passing too close to them. Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben rush to the windows, looking out at the impossible sight of a creature from prehistory attacking their city. Reed's scientific mind immediately begins analyzing. Where did it come from? What's its biology? How can it be stopped without causing more destruction than the creature itself? He begins formulating a plan, opening his mouth to issue instructions. But Johnny is already moving, his impulsive nature taking over. He wears his suit and soars toward Giganto with absolute confidence and zero plan. Reed, frustrated by Johnny's impulsiveness, turns to Sue and Ben, about to outline a more measured approach. He suggests Sue should stay at the Baxter building, arguing that her powers might not be particularly effective against something of Giganto's size. The suggestion is logical from Reed's perspective. He's calculating effectiveness, trying to protect someone he cares about from unnecessary danger. Sue's response is immediate and angry. She's not staying behind while her brother and the others face danger. Her powers are more versatile than Reed gives her credit for, and she's tired of being sidelined because Reed underestimates her. She turns invisible and heads for the exit, leaving Reed and Ben to follow. The four superpowered individuals converge on Giganto's location, and the battle that follows reveals both their potential and their lack of coordination as a team. Reed stretches upward, slinging his body across streetlights and rooftops, attempting to bind Giganto's limbs in coils of elastic force. The strain bends steel and pulls at his body until it feels like fire. Giganto tears free with a thunderous motion, sending Reed snapping back across the wreckage like a rubber whip. Ben charges. Every footfall shakes the asphalt. When he hits Giganto's leg, it's like a meteor striking the earth. The shockwave cracking pavement, the sound echoing off glass towers. Giganto stumbles, slamming a clawed fist down that flattens a line of cars. Ben catches it with both arms, straining against impossible weight. Reed and Sue work together evacuating civilians, and Reed witnesses his earlier assessment of Sue's abilities being demolished. She creates force fields that catch falling debris, preventing injury and death. She makes platforms that allow people to cross areas Giganto has destroyed. Her control and power exceed what Reed calculated, and he realizes his suggestion that she stay behind was both wrong and insulting. Johnny, meanwhile, has discovered that taunting a giant monster has consequences. He flies around Giganto's head, throwing fireballs at the creature's eyes, shouting insults and challenges with the bravado of someone who hasn't fully thought through his actions. Giganto reacts with predictable rage, swinging its massive arms wildly, and one impact strikes a building. Sue intervenes. She tells Ben to save the people in the falling building, and she'll give him a way to reach them. Sue creates a force field platform, a solid invisible structure that rises through the air. Ben leaps onto it, trusting Sue completely, and she elevates him toward the collapsing building. On one floor, Ben finds a little girl trapped under rubble, her leg pinned, her eyes wide with terror. Ben carefully lifts the debris, his massive strength making the removal effortless, and reaches for the child. The girl screams, recoiling from Ben with pure horror. She sees a monster coming for her, not a rescuer. The reaction cuts Ben deeply, confirming his worst fears about how the world sees him. He shields the girl with his body, absorbing impacts that would kill any normal human, and carries her through the collapsing building to safety outside. He sets her down as gently as possible, and she immediately runs to her mother, who pulls her away from Ben while thanking him in a voice that mixes gratitude with fear. Before Ben can rejoin the fight, Moloids emerge from the sewers. They render Ben unconscious through sheer numbers and drag him into the sewers, disappearing into darkness. Giganto, its purpose apparently served, retreats into a massive hole it burrowed earlier, vanishing underground before the remaining heroes can stop it. Suddenly, a news crew from the Daily Bugle arrives, led by Jonah Jameson. He acknowledges that they saved lives today, that their intervention prevented casualties that would have been catastrophic. Jameson asks what they call themselves, what their purpose is, what the public should understand about them. Reed, always better with prepared statements than impromptu responses, explains that they're forming a team of adventurers, explorers, and scientists dedicated to protecting and advancing humanity. Johnny, caught up in the moment and the media attention, blurts out Frightful 4, apparently thinking the name sounds dramatic and memorable. The name causes immediate confusion among the gathered reporters and civilians. Frightful suggests something to be feared, something threatening. Are they heroes or menaces? Friends or foes? Reed quickly corrects Fantastic Four, a name he's apparently been considering. But the news media immediately points out the obvious mathematical problem. There are only 3 of them present. Reed, Sue, and Johnny suddenly realize Ben's absence. Their celebration of victory, turning to concern and then fear. Ben regains consciousness slowly, his rocky head aching in ways he didn't know rock could ache. Harvey Elder steps into view. Moloids surround them, watchful but not immediately threatening. Ben demands to know where he is and what Harvey wants. Harvey's response is measured and empathetic. He explains that he watched Ben during the battle, saw how the surface world treated him despite his heroic actions. Harvey understands that experience intimately. He too was dismissed by the surface world, rejected and ridiculed for his beliefs, cast aside because he saw truths others couldn't accept. Harvey offers Ben a place in Subterranea, describing it as a realm where appearance doesn't matter, where strength is valued, where Ben could live without fear of rejection or cruelty. He suggests that Ben doesn't belong on the surface anymore, that his transformation has freed him from society that would never truly accept what he's become. Ben's first questions come rapid fire. What happened to that giant green creature that attacked the city? How did Ben end up down here? Harvey waves a hand dismissively, his tone almost casual. He tells Ben not to worry. He took care of Giganto. The creature is one of his, he explains, just misbehaving. Sometimes the monsters get restless, act out. As for Ben, Harvey found him unconscious near one of the tunnel entrances. Lucky timing, really. Ben's perplexity lingers as he reluctantly stands, and Harvey is already moving on, gesturing for Ben to follow him deeper into the caverns. The underground civilization Harvey has built is remarkable. Vast caverns converted into living spaces, underground rivers providing water and transportation, gardens of bioluminescent plants cultivated for food and light. The Moloids move through this space with purpose, organized into a functioning society under Harvey's guidance. Harvey shares his story, how the scientific community rejected his theories about underground passages, how colleagues mocked his research, how he became a laughingstock for believing in something that conventional wisdom deemed impossible. The fall that brought him here was both tragedy and liberation. He found what he'd always believed existed, and in finding it, he discovered where he truly belonged. Harvey encourages Ben to stay, to embrace this new world rather than clinging to a surface that offers only pain. He tells Harvey he'll see what this underground life offers, though doubt lingers beneath his acceptance. Reed, Sue, and Johnny are his family, the connections that define him. But Harvey questions whether Ben is willing to endure constant fear and hatred from the public, to be forever seen as a monster. Wouldn't it be better to live here, among beings who would accept him, in a place where his appearance makes him fit in rather than stand out? Ben, exhausted emotionally and physically, tentatively agrees to stay, to give Subterranea a chance. Reed, Sue, and Johnny return to the Baxter building hours after the battle, exhausted and worried about Ben. They enter to find signs of forced entry, doors damaged, security systems offline, clear evidence that something happened here during their absence. The discovery transforms worry into alarm as they rush through the building assessing damage. They find HERBIE in the central operations area, the robot systems damaged and barely functional. Scorch marks and impact dents mar HERBIE's spherical body, evidence of a fight. During the Giganto battle, while the team was away, Moloids infiltrated the Baxter building. HERBIE attempted to repel them, using defensive systems and physical intervention, but the creatures came in overwhelming numbers with specific purpose. They weren't here to cause random destruction. They came for something specific. They fought past HERBIE, disabled security systems, and stole a device from Reed's laboratory. Reed rushes to his laboratory, scanning the space with frantic energy. Multiple items have been disturbed, but he quickly identifies what's missing: a specialized power source he'd been developing for scientific research. The device could generate significant energy in compact form, useful for various applications, but potentially dangerous in the wrong hands. Whoever orchestrated this theft knew exactly what they needed and where to find it. The implications are obvious. The Giganto attack was a diversion, a calculated distraction that drew them away from the Baxter building while the real objective was accomplished elsewhere. Someone planned this meticulously, understanding their capabilities and how to exploit their instinct to protect civilians. And now they have both Ben and a component that could be used for purposes Reed can only speculate about. In the underground caverns, Harvey Elder continues work on his machine with renewed energy now that the final component has been acquired. The device is massive, complex, incorporating technology that seems beyond anything the surface world has developed alongside ancient mechanisms Harvey discovered in these caverns. Harvey works with focused intensity, the moloids assisting according to his detailed instructions. They bring him the stolen power source, and Harvey integrates it into the machine's core. He records a video message and transmits it to every electronic device on the surface world. The message appears on phones, computer screens, televisions, and public displays throughout New York and beyond. Harvey identifies himself, explains that he leads the underground civilization of Subterranea, and announces his intention to sink New York City into the earth using his completed machine. He presents logical justification. The creatures of Subterranea continue to multiply and expand, requiring more space. Rather than engage in internal conflict over limited resources, why not claim territory from the surface? The machine will create massive sinkholes, bringing portions of New York down into the underground realm, where they will be integrated into Subterranea's expanding domain. Harvey gives a timeline, hours, not days, before the machine activates. Ben, watching this transmission, realizes he's been manipulated. Harvey didn't offer him refuge out of kindness or empathy. He needed Ben complacent, not interfering with the plan. The sympathy, the understanding, the offer of acceptance, all of it served Harvey's larger purpose. Ben has been used, and his absence made the Baxter building vulnerable to infiltration. Ben confronts Harvey immediately, anger overriding any hesitation about belonging in Subterranea. This isn't about finding space for underground creatures. It's terrorism, an attack that will kill thousands of people. Harvey's logic about expansion doesn't justify mass murder. Harvey responds calmly, apparently expecting this confrontation. He tries again to persuade Ben, suggesting that Ben should embrace his place with the creatures of Subterranea rather than the humans who rejected him. Ben refuses absolutely to be part of this. Whatever pain he's experienced, whatever rejection he's faced, he cannot support murdering thousands of people. His loyalty remains with Reed, Sue, and Johnny, with the surface world despite its flaws, with humanity even though humanity struggles to accept him. Harvey, disappointed but not surprised by Ben's choice, signals the moloids. They attack Ben in overwhelming numbers, employing tactics designed specifically to counter his strength. Ben fights magnificently, his rocky fist destroying moloids, his determination formidable. But they keep coming, dozens becoming scores, and eventually even Ben's strength has limits. They restrain him, bind him with chains designed to hold something of his strength, and lock him in a reinforced cell where he can only watch helplessly as Harvey's plan proceeds. Reed, Sue, and Johnny watch Harvey's video message in the operations center, and the implications hit them immediately. The connection between the Giganto attack and Ben's abduction becomes clear. Everything was orchestrated by someone with resources, intelligence, and significant knowledge of what they're capable of. Reed analyzes the video frame by frame, his enhanced intellect processing details most viewers would miss. Background elements reveal information Harvey likely didn't intend to share. geological formations visible behind him, particular types of crystalline structures, acoustic properties that suggest cavern dimensions. Reed cross-references this data with Harvey's historical research, the island where Giganto first appeared, and geological surveys of underground formations. Reed brings up massive holographic maps in the operations center, displaying Monster Island's topology and theoretical underground structure. He explains his reasoning to Sue and Johnny, showing them how the evidence points to this location. If they move immediately, they might be able to reach Harvey before the machine activates to stop the attack and rescue Ben. HERBIE, still damaged but functional enough to manage building systems, announces a visitor, Alicia Masters, asking for Ben Grimm. Sue, Reed, and Johnny exchange glances, uncertain how to handle this unexpected complication. They meet Alicia in the reception area, and she immediately asks about Ben, concern evident in her voice. She explains that she spent time with Ben recently, that they connected in meaningful ways. Reed explains carefully that Ben is missing, that they believe he's been taken by whoever orchestrated the Giganto attack. Alicia's distress is immediate and genuine, proving that her connection with Ben wasn't casual or superficial. Johnny assures Alicia that they're going after Ben, that they'll bring him back safely, and Alicia should wait here where she'll be safe. Alicia agrees reluctantly, making them promise to tell Ben she's thinking about him, that he should come back because someone is waiting for him. Reed leads Sue and Johnny to the hangar bay, a section of the Baxter building they haven't previously accessed. He opens massive doors, revealing his surprise, the Fantasticar, a vehicle he's designed specifically for the team. They board the Fantasticar, and the flight to Monster Island reveals Reed's engineering genius. They land on a relatively clear area, a rocky outcropping that provides enough space for the Fantasticar while offering views of the surrounding terrain. Reed becomes immediately distracted by the scientific implications of what he's seeing. He begins taking readings, mutters observations about atmospheric composition and biological diversity. This is a researcher's paradise, a place where answers to fundamental questions about evolution and extinction might be discovered. Sue snaps him back to focus, reminding Reed that they're here for Ben, not for scientific tourism. They need to locate the cavern entrance, find Harvey's machine, and rescue Ben before the attack on New York begins. Reed acknowledges his distraction with slight embarrassment, refocusing on the mission even as part of his mind continues processing the island's impossibilities. Their exploration is suddenly interrupted by Tricephalus, a massive three-headed reptilian creature that emerges from the jungle with territorial aggression. Johnny immediately proposes splitting up. He'll draw Tricephalus away, keeping it occupied while Reed and Sue find Ben. Sue objects, arguing they should stay together, that separating reduces their effectiveness and puts Johnny at risk. But Johnny insists with unexpected maturity. He can fly, can maneuver in ways the creature can't match, and his powers give him advantages in this situation. He promises to catch up with them after dealing with Tricephalus. Before Sue can argue further, Johnny shouts "Flame on!" and takes to the air, becoming a human fireball that immediately draws Tricephalus' attention. The creature roars from all three mouths and gives chase, crashing through the jungle in pursuit of this airborne target. Johnny leads the creature toward volcanic regions he spotted during their landing, areas where the island's geological instability manifests in lava flows and superheated vents. It's risky. The heat might affect even his fire-resistant body, but it represents the best opportunity to neutralize Tricephalus without killing it. The chase culminates at the edge of a volcanic crater, lava bubbling hundreds of feet below. Johnny hovers at the crater's center, taunting Tricephalus, encouraging it to charge. The creature, enraged and territorial, doesn't hesitate. It launches itself toward Johnny with all three heads snapping. At the last possible second, Johnny dodges, his aerial agility allowing an escape impossible for the grounded creature. Tricephalus, unable to change direction mid-leap, plunges into the crater. Reed and Sue descend into the caverns, following passages that slope downward into the earth. In this darkness, Reed finally breaks down emotionally. He stops walking, And when Sue asks what's wrong, the words pour out of him. It's his fault that Ben was transformed. Reed designed the mission, built the ship, and insisted they needed to study cosmic radiation in space. He didn't predict the cosmic storm, didn't build adequate shielding, and now his best friend is trapped in a body he never chose, suffering constantly because Reed's ambition outpaced his caution. Sue acknowledges that Ben's suffering is real, that Reed's guilt has basis in reality. But dwelling in that guilt, allowing it to consume him, doesn't help Ben and doesn't honor the friendship they share. What Reed can do is work toward solutions, support Ben through the transformations challenges, and accept that some things cannot be fixed or reversed, only endured and adapted to. Sue tells Reed that she needs him present, not just physically, but emotionally. She can't be in a relationship with someone who's always mentally in the laboratory, always prioritizing research over connection. Reed acknowledges this truth, admitting that he uses work to avoid processing difficult emotions, that his intellect becomes a shield against feelings he doesn't know how to handle. He's afraid of his powers, of what they've become, of a future that looks nothing like what he planned. Work provides control, order, predictability in a situation that has none of those qualities. They kiss in the darkness, a connection forged through honesty and shared vulnerability. Continuing deeper into the caverns, Reed and Sue eventually hear Harvey's voice echoing through stone passages. He's speaking to moloids, coordinating final preparations for his plan. Sue immediately turns both herself and Reed invisible. They navigate closer, following Harvey's voice, until they reach a cavern that serves as some kind of central command area. There they see Ben, imprisoned in a cell constructed from materials strong enough to restrain even his considerable strength. Ben sits with his rocky head in his massive hands, the posture conveying defeat and exhaustion. Reed and Sue approach the cell carefully, still invisible, aware that moloids patrol the area. Sue's control over her powers has improved dramatically. She can maintain invisibility for extended periods now, can extend it to cover others, can move silently enough that even the moloids' sensitive hearing doesn't detect their presence. They reach Ben's cell, and Sue drops invisibility momentarily, allowing Ben to see them. Ben's rocky features shift, suggesting emotion difficult to read through his transformed face. But his eyes, still human, still Ben's eyes, show relief, gratitude, and shame at needing rescue. Reed immediately begins working on the cell's locking mechanism, his stretching fingers allowing him to reach components and manipulate systems in ways normal hands couldn't. Before they can free Ben completely, moloids emerge from multiple passages, surrounding them with precision, suggesting they were detected despite Sue's invisibility. Harvey Elder appears, applauding slowly, a theatrical gesture that conveys both admiration and contempt. He congratulates them on reaching this far, acknowledges their impressive abilities, but declares they're too late. His plan is already in motion, the machine already activated, New York's fate already sealed. He describes subterraneous expansion, the integration of surface territory into his underground realm, the creation of a new order where creatures like those dwelling beneath the earth receive the space and resources they deserve. He positions himself as a revolutionary, someone correcting the surface world's dominance and making room for alternatives. During this monologue, Johnny arrives in spectacular fashion, landing with dramatic flair, his arrival timed perfectly to interrupt Harvey's speech. The four members of the team are now together, and whatever happens next, they'll face it united. Harvey Elder orders his army forward. The creatures emerge from passages throughout the cavern system. Not just moloids, but dozens of monsters, each adapted to underground existence, each following Harvey's commands through means that blend technology with something approaching telepathy. The battle that follows tests everything the Fantastic Four have learned about their powers and about each other. Giganto presents a challenge none of them could face alone. Sue uses her force fields to immobilize Giganto's feet, the invisible restraints holding the massive creature in place despite its struggles. Johnny flies directly at Giganto's head, shooting precisely aimed flames at its eyes, blinding it temporarily without causing permanent damage. Reed stretches his body into an enormous slingshot, a configuration that shouldn't be possible, but somehow is his molecular structure allowing configurations that defy conventional biology. Ben positions himself in the sling, understanding what Reed intends without needing explanation. Reed releases, and Ben rockets through the air like a projectile, his rocky body becoming a living cannonball. As he flies toward Giganto, Ben shouts his battle cry, a phrase that's been building in him since his transformation, words that capture everything he's become. It's clobbering time. Ben's punch connects with Giganto with tremendous force, all his strength channeled into a single impact. The blow doesn't kill the creature. They're heroes, not executioners, but it knocks Giganto unconscious, the massive body crashing to the cavern floor with a ground-shaking impact. The Moloids, seeing their creatures defeated and their leader fallen, lose coordination and retreat into the deeper passages, fleeing rather than continuing a lost battle. The machine still hums ominously in a nearby cavern, energy building toward the threshold that will activate its destructive purpose. Reed rushes to it, his intellect processing its design at remarkable speed. Reed identifies the machine's core mechanisms, the systems that will create the massive sinkholes Harvey described. Reed realizes he can't stop it alone. He turns to Harvey, who lies broken among the rubble, defeated and hollow. Reed shouts at him, his voice cutting through the cavern's chaos. Harvey built this machine. Only he truly understands how it works. Reed begs him to help, to have a change of heart before thousands of people die, before Subterranea becomes responsible for mass murder. Harvey remains motionless at first, staring at nothing. Then something shifts in his expression. He sees not the vision he imagined, but the reality of what he's about to cause. He struggles to his feet, limping toward the machine. Without a word, he begins working alongside Reed, guiding him to the critical systems, showing him which components to disable in which sequence. Together, they shut down the machine. The escalating hum dies, energy dissipating safely. The threat ends. Harvey slumps against the now silent device, exhausted and broken in more ways than physical. Sue, Johnny, and Ben stare at Reed with confusion and anger. Why is he helping someone who just tried to destroy New York? Reed explains showing compassion isn't weakness. It's recognizing their shared humanity, even after everything Harvey has done. Reed recognizes in Harvey someone like himself, someone whose vision extended beyond contemporary understanding, who saw possibilities others couldn't perceive. Reed proposes a treaty, a formal agreement between the surface world and Subterranea. Harvey's realm will be recognized and respected, given autonomy over its territory. But in exchange, Subterranea must not threaten the surface, must not expand through violence or destruction. Both worlds can coexist if they establish clear boundaries and mutual respect. Harvey considers this offer more seriously. It gives him what he actually needs: space for Subterranea to exist, recognition of his discoveries, autonomy to lead the civilization he's built. But he voices the problem that drove him to extremes in the first place. His world still needs more space. The creatures will continue to multiply. Eventually, the caverns won't be enough. What is he supposed to do now? Reed places a hand on Harvey's shoulder. He tells Harvey they'll figure it out together. The Fantastic Four ride home in the Fantastic Car. All four members present this time. The team complete. Ben sits quietly, processing everything that happened. Harvey's manipulation, his temporary acceptance of an underground life, the realization that running from the surface world's rejection doesn't actually solve anything. Back at the Baxter building, Alicia waits as promised. When Ben enters, she immediately moves toward him, her hands finding his rocky face with practiced ease. She doesn't need to see him to know he's hurt emotionally, to sense that something difficult happened. Ben allows himself to accept her comfort, to acknowledge that her acceptance matters, that having someone who sees past his appearance gives him strength to face the world's less understanding reactions. The team gathers to discuss what comes next. They've fought together, functioned as a genuine unit for the first time, proven they can protect people and face significant threats. But they still lack true identity, clear purpose beyond reactive heroics. They need to define themselves rather than let circumstances define them. They discuss their code names, the public identities they'll carry. Ben commits to the thing, accepting and even embracing what he's become. The name transforms what was an insult into a statement of identity. He's the thing, solid and unbreakable, the foundation upon which others can build. Johnny suggests Invisible Woman for Sue, recognizing his sister's power and maturity in ways he hadn't before. The name acknowledges both her abilities and her choice to be visible when it matters, to use her powers actively rather than hiding from the world. For himself, Johnny chooses Human Torch, specifically honoring the World War II hero who bore that name, connecting himself to a legacy of heroism and sacrifice. They turn to Reed, asking what his codename should be. Sue proposes Mr. Fantastic, capturing both his incredible intelligence and his remarkable abilities. Reed accepts it, and with that acceptance, their identities become fixed. Mr. Fantastic, the Invisible Woman, the Human Torch, and the Thing. The Fantastic Four hold their first official press conference, standing together on the Baxter Building's public plaza. Media from around the world attends, cameras capturing this moment when four transformed individuals formally announce their intention to serve humanity. The crowd's applause is thunderous, overwhelming, evidence that people are ready to accept them not despite their powers, but because of them. They perform their team gesture, a fist bump that symbolizes unity and mutual commitment, and Johnny takes flight, his flames controlled and purposeful. He soars above Manhattan, trailing fire, and creates a massive flaming for logo in the sky above the Baxter Building. The symbol hangs there, visible for miles, announcing that the Fantastic Four have arrived. Several days pass. The Fantastic Four settle into routines, practicing their powers, responding to incidents, establishing themselves as protectors and explorers. HERBIE, fully repaired now, alerts the team to an intruder. Someone has bypassed their security systems, improved after the Molloy break-in, but apparently still not impenetrable. The alert shows the intruder's location. He's somehow penetrated into the building's interior, deep past multiple security layers. The Fantastic Four respond immediately, converging on the intruder's position. They find him trapped in a plexiglass containment tube, one of the building's automated defenses that activates when unauthorized presence is detected. Inside the tube is Spider-Man, a costumed figure they've heard about from news reports but never encountered directly. He escapes the containment tube with acrobatic ease, demonstrating agility that rivals Johnny's flight in its own way. The Fantastic Four engage, more to assess his capabilities than to harm him, and discover he's remarkably formidable, strong enough to match Ben in grappling, fast enough to avoid Johnny's flames, clever enough to counter Reed's stretching, observant enough to anticipate Sue's invisible attacks. They eventually corner him, more through coordination than superior power, and demand to know why he broke into their headquarters. Spider-Man's response, delivered with verbal energy that suggests he talks constantly even when it's tactically unwise, surprises them. He's here to apply for a job. He wants to join the team. Spider-Man makes his pitch with enthusiasm bordering on desperation. He's got powers, he's good in a fight, he could really contribute to what they're doing. They could be the Fantastic Five. He throws out the suggestion jokingly, but there's genuine hope underneath the humor. Reed's response is diplomatic but firm. The Fantastic Four operate as a non-profit organization, earning no salaries, funding themselves through Reed's patents and occasional contracts. Spider-Man's disappointment is palpable even through his mask. He mutters something about rent being due and responsibilities being expensive, then web slings out through an open window, vanishing into Manhattan skyline. The Fantastic Four watch him go, uncertain what to make of this encounter.